Hello, I'm Bill McCune. I'm the producer of The Road to Nazlini. This project has taken 10 months to do. It has involved 15,000 miles of driving, as well as helicopter and horseback time, all in the beautiful state of Arizona. And we've enjoyed the help of several of our sovereign Native American nations as we've explored their ceremonial practices, spiritual beliefs, and the importance of trying to preserve their ancient cultures. Now, there are about 500 Indian nations in the Americas, and whereas there are similarities in spirituality and ceremonial practices, be aware that this program only touches a small sampling. Nazlini is a small community in the Navajo Nation. This program is not about Nazlini per se, but rather it serves as a metaphor for the importance of understanding and appreciation of the native ways. That is what our effort is about.
I think God has many names. We might call him the Creator, we might call him God, we might call him Allah. He has many names, but there's only one God.
Our God is a living God. He is the creator of everything, and even us. And we had to respect the sun, the wind, the rain, the fire, the water, and we had to respect everything because it belongs to God.
Arizona is home to more indigenous Native American people than any other state. At the beginning of the 21st century, there is still a significant gap of understanding separating Indian and non-Indian societies. The larger society is curious about Native America. Native America is torn between the reservation and the city. The Navajo Nation, the Dene, is America's largest tribe. Its vast reservation has seen modernization, although most people live more traditionally in or around remote villages. The economic life of the average American Indian is still very difficult. On the road up to Nazlini, just north of Kinlichi, the summer blows in dust there, the winter sloshes slush there, and a breath can be a chore with heavy air. Amid the bigness of that nation, in the land of their creation, life is seldom easy on the road up to Nazlini. If you're past the place called Cornfields, though not to Spider Rock, a westward glance behind you seems to take you to Polacca or Bacobi, though you know that really can't be. The plateaus and the mesas jump skyward from the floor and look like you can touch them from 50 miles or more. And perhaps that misconception provides a metaphor for the gulf between the native ways and larger society's curious gaze. Amid the bigness of that nation, in the land of their creation, understanding is not easy on the road up to Nazlini. Dianna College, operated by the Navajo Nation at Lee, Arizona, offers degree programs in Navajo philosophy and culture. Dr. Anthony Lee.
In Navajo, in the Dianna, in a way of trying to define the meaning of God, I think we put it in the context of what is inherent. What's inherent in nature, and then we call that the inherent supernatural qualities, and then by that we mean there are spiritual entities in all four directions, in the universe system. That's how we try to maintain our saneness and maintain a sense of harmony and balance, and because our concept of God is directly associated with the cycle of life, with the four seasons, with 4 parts of the day, that's what regulates, our mind, our behavior, our attitude.
The Tohono Nation, with some 20,000 members, is in south-central Arizona. The name means desert people. Its most famous landmark is the 18th century Sanavir Mission, although the structure and the few acres it occupies is owned by the Catholic Church. The chairman of the Sanavir district of Tohono O'odham is Austin Nunez.
The Tohono concept of God is that He is creator, that He created us here, but He created us equally with all living things. And that, as my understanding, that we will eventually go back to Him once we go onto the spirit world. He is everywhere, but He is one. And in our legends, it's said that there was a helper whom we call Ithoi. And Ithoi lived among our people and helped our people evolve to who we are today as O'odham people.
First, they say it's the water. Ithoi, when he made first man, he put water and clay together and formed a figure. And from there, he used the sun, the fire, and from there he used the air. So the 4 elements of life is we're attached to that. The earth being our body, the water being our feelings, the way we feel, our emotions, and then the fire, which is our movement, and from there the air is our mind, our thinking. So the mind or the air is close to the what we say Ithoi, our spirit.
Cocopah is a small tribe which has always lived along the southern reaches of the Colorado River. Dale Phillips is a tribal spiritual leader who has served both as the chairman and vice chairman of the Cocopah.
I think God has many names. We might call him the Creator, we might call him God, we might call him Allah. He has many names, but there's only one God. The only difference that we have is, I think, I don't want to say modern society, but the religion in this world that we have is they say, you have to get the Spirit. You have to get the Spirit. You know, that way you know you're strong and you can go to heaven to be with God. The Indian people, we believe that we are born with a Spirit. We already have that Spirit. God gave us that Spirit. We already have it. We just need to rejuvenate it because of the way it is today, we stray away from that.
Shigwas. Shikan. Shigan. Shitel. Shipe.
The White Mountain Apache Reservation is amid pine forests in east-central Arizona. Edgar Perry is an elder, an historian, and a teacher.
God is, we call him Ikekuidan. It's a long word and it means a person that is in charge of life and breath. Our God is a living God, and he lives behind the sun. You know, he is the creator of everything, and even us. And so God is a spirit, like a mountain spirit that comes down, and we have to respect the sun, the wind, the rain, the fire, the water, and we have to respect everything because it belongs to God. The creation story is about the spider. It's a beautiful story, and usually you tell the story during the winter months. And my grandfather told me, he said one time the whole earth was dark, and there were a lot of things hanging down. It was like a spider web. And they said the spider, I guess, was one of the, became the creator. And then there was a little cloud, and the cloud would come behind God, and then everything will grow as the cloud touches the ground and so forth. But there's more than that, you know, there's beautiful story of the creation.
The Pima Indians, in their own language, are the Akimul Ooro, meaning river people, as their desert reservation borders the Gila River south of Phoenix. When Pope John Paul II visited Phoenix, a special mass was celebrated for Native Americans. Pima tribal elder and traditional healer Emmet White was asked to offer a blessing of the pontiff.
Well, the old-timers go back many, many generations, you know, in terms of Judeo-Christian-Islamic being, you know, floating around as nothing, you know, as a piece of wisp of a cloud that chose to do something about making the earth and and all the animals and everything that are here today, you know. If we want to call him, we just call him Judeo-Christian-Islamic, which is earth medicine person, you know, and we don't necessarily call him God, or the word Josh that we use recently came with the Spaniards, you know, and what they call their God as Dios, you know, and then sometimes we take those words and Indianize them, or, you know, Pimanize them more or less, and use it in that way. We believe that God made everything, you know. We believe that God made the trees and the animals for a purpose. We believe that we can't go around killing animals just for the fun of it, or shooting birds out of the sky, or we believe in having to go to the medicine rock and pray before we go hunting, you know, and leave a little token of thank you after that, and those kinds of things, you know, and working with the earth.
I am the Grand Canyon, and I live here because of the beautiful rocks that are sacred to us too. These are medicine rocks. Some of them are so sacred that we don't even go near it. So this is a part of my life. So I am the Grand Canyon myself.
He lives in all things. He lives in the trees, the leaves, the grass, and the water. And so when we look at the elements, we recognize that as the glorification of God, of the Great Spirit, Creator.
The Havasupai are among the most geographically isolated tribes in America. Numbering less than 1,000 members, most of their beautiful ancestral land is around Supai village at the bottom of the Grand Canyon, reachable only by hiking, horseback, or helicopters. Roland, Manakaja.
So when we look at spirituality, we look at the human beings, the things that are moving biologically, the horses, the dogs, the birds. All these things we recognize as a part of one super being, which would be the Creator.
The name spirituality is about connectedness. It's about connectivity. It's about earth and sky and how we're connected, you know, to the elements. The earth, water, air, and sunlight. It's basically just 4 elements when we talk about spirituality. It's about wellness, you know. It's about many things that leads a Navajo person to experience a life, you know, to live a full life, a quality of life, and to live a life to the fullest extent.
There is a practice that we have when our children are born, when they become 3 months old, that we go to the medicine person and they mix a ceremonial mud, and with that action alone, through prayer, we give the mud to the child and the parents. That child is then reconnected back to earth, so they are one with the earth. The other part of our religion is related to the saguaro fruit. Out of that fruit, the tremendous things come with that. The saguaro fruit provided bounty for our people, and it was used to pray to bring rain. So it's very significant, and then the saguaro itself was viewed as a human being. And as a matter of fact, our stories say that the saguaro used to be a human being, but turned into the saguaro.
Anye wata paya kota wasi koju wata pata haya 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 haroy mata. It says, I am the eagle that flies, and I fly all over the world. And the chants are ha-ya, ha-ya, and I'm all around like an eagle. Tohono O'odham have always been spiritual because of our legends and our teachings of the importance of how we are made as humans. We call ourselves Tohono O'odham. Tohono O'odham, it has to do with the sun, the shining of the sun, Tohono. And later on, the termination of Tohono O'odham is a desert people or desert Indians.
The Cocopah teaching is that we are born with a spirit. So we have the spirit in us that it's a matter of survival. The spirit is something that we possess at all times.
Historically, the spirituality of the Cocopah has, more than many other tribes, involved dreams and visions.
We're able to know if we energize our spirit, begin to work with our spirit to make it stronger for us, we get in a mental stage to where we can fight maybe diseases, sickness. We can see, maybe predict the future, see what's going to happen through dreams and vision, which is, you got to be spiritually strong to be able to take a dream and to understand it if it's a vision that something that is going to happen, maybe a good vision or maybe a bad vision. So spirituality to us is we're born with a spirit.
Dr. Donald Barr is a Harvard-educated anthropologist at Arizona State University. Since the 1960s, he has researched and written on the spiritual beliefs of Arizona Indian tribes. He notes a fundamental difference in emphasis between tribal views and those of Christian denominations.
Christians, especially old-fashioned ones, really thought that it's not so much a matter of how well off we are here in Phoenix, Tempe, during our life, but what matters is, the hereafter. And salvation came to mean that, not to be saved of trouble down here, but to be saved for eternity. Tribal religions, like the native peoples of Arizona have, are not really that concerned about what happens in the hereafter. There is a hereafter, there are souls, and they have sacraments, and those sacraments are ministering to their souls. But it seems like there's a bigger concern about the souls of people as they live, how to keep the human community going well, than it is souls after they're dead.
At the village of Santa Rosa on the Tohono O'odham Reservation, a special Catholic Mass is celebrated by the Bishop of Tucson.
And the gift of the Holy Spirit. Are you resolved to discharge the office of deacon with humility and love in order to assist the bishop and the priest and to serve the people of Christ? I am. Are you resolved?
3 O'odham men are becoming deacons, the highest lay position in the church. And as with the practices of many tribal members, the trappings of the Mass are a blending of traditional and Christianity.
I think there's 2 things that are strong and growing. One is old and one is new, all through Arizona. The old one is Christianity. And so there's many people, just about everybody is probably baptized a Christian, and just about everybody is buried a Christian. And it seems like, especially if you're a young family and you want to make a life in the tribe, not in the city, but in the nation, on the reservation, we can say, one thing that at least I notice more and more is families get with different Christian denominations, if it's Catholics or if it's Mormons or Presbyterians or like that. Those have all been there for at least 100 years.
The Cocopah belief with the Creator and what the Bible teaches, they almost run side by side. What we've been told through our elders is almost exactly the same as what you read in the Bible. Today, there's a lot of Christian people, but they practice the traditional way, especially at ceremonies for awakes, funeral ceremonies. They do the traditional singing, they do the traditional dress, you know, and they believe in, you know, the ceremony. So they don't forget where they come from, even though they're real strong Christians.
What's newer for some people, some tribes in Arizona, is the Native American church, or the peyote religion. That's spreading a lot.
In the 19th century, certain American tribes received what they view as a spiritual gift in the form of a consciousness-enhancing plant called peyote, which, ingested as a sacrament, allows a person, in their words, to focus, meditate, become one with God. The use of peyote spread throughout the Native American world and led eventually to the formation of the Native American Church. During the first several decades of the church's history, peyote was illegal under federal law. Church meetings were often held cautiously. Finally, in the mid-1970s, Congress enacted new statutes allowing the controlled use of peyote for religious purposes. We will examine that practice in more detail later. The Native American Church today plays a significant role in the Pan-Indian movement. It is an inclusive religious entity that crosses traditional tribal and non-tribal theological lines and emphasizes a strong social and emotional support system for those who participate.
The Native American Church, to me, is a blend of Christianity. It's a blend of traditional concepts. And so when you blend all of those, to me, it reinforces the respective traditional practices of each tribe and it promotes the language, in my view, and then it helps the young people have a foundation to grow upon, and it teaches love, faith, hope, and charity.
Many people find Native American Church is their way of life and their way of worship. And some of the members of the Native American Church are also, you know, are strong believers in other different denominations too. And it's for birthdays and, you know, happy occasions, and sometimes also problems, and also funerals or anniversaries, even people that want to make commitments to relationships. So the Native American Church has always been among different tribes, and, like I said, a bona fide, unified way of worship.
That's growing, and that is a very, like the Christian denominations, that gives people a lot of support. I mean, a lot of their purpose, I think, or as I understand it, is to stand behind people and give them like a church community, or you know, a support, and to help people, encourage people to live good lives and regular lives, and keep their family life going and everything like that.
If a personal support system is a critical element of the Pan-Indian movement, a valuable practice is called a talking circle.
First of all, I'd just like to say good evening to each and one of you, and thank you for coming over here this evening. And go ahead and take some time out here to burn some cedar and some sage here.
Developed long ago by tribes in the northwest United States, it's a kind of family circle, offering encouragement and giving everyone a chance to discuss problems. In recent decades, it has become widely used in intertribal gatherings.
Give you all an opportunity here this evening to express yourself here in this talking circle about your life, and about how you have come to a place in your life of practicing wellness, physically, mentally, and spiritually. And the things that you say here are very special, because each one of us as human beings are very special, and we have our own history and our own way of being. And so what you express here will be your own history, and what you share here might be something that might help one of us that is sitting here in this circle, because through this circle we become all connected. We're relatives, and the thoughts and the feelings that you're expressing may be the thoughts and feelings that one of us in this circle are also experiencing. So just want to give you all an opportunity to express yourself that way.
You know, from the time I wake up until the time I go to sleep, I try to have that good thought and good prayer in my mind, in my heart, and my spirit. And although this life is not always simple, I find that these Native American ways have really taught me how to humble myself and to see the brighter side of things in my life. I'm real thankful that the Creator has provided me a way of providing for my family that way, you know, to make it into a holistic type of lifestyle since I've moved back home. And then they say, you know, with these eagle feathers, you know, that our prayers, the eagle flies the highest, and our prayers are taken up that way, our thoughts, our feelings like that, you know. So I'm real thankful to be able to hold your feather, Auntie, to express myself that way.
We've begun this path together here this evening to be a part of one another's lives, and to be able to treasure it, and to be able to carry it with us towards our future in a good way. And through that, you know, we could be able to practice this being in balance and harmony, you know, having this love, faith, hope, and charity among one another as human beings, and then at the same time still to have some relationship with the elements that give us life: the water, the air, the fire, and the earth. And that's what we're doing here. That's what we're going to do when we go into the sweat lodge, and that's what we do in our everyday life from the time that we open our eyes and start moving into the day that's given to us each day. So I just want to say thank you, each one of you, for sharing your life with each other and with myself here this evening. These things, that's all I have to say for all my relations.
The sweat bath, or more commonly called a sweat, has historically been a practice of many tribes, although its use has spread significantly during the past 30 or 40 years with the Pan-Indian movement. Whereas this is a more contemporary sweat that has the pit in the center and sprinkled water makes steam, some tribes use an older approach with the pit to the side and no water. It's more like a sauna than a steam bath.
The sweat is a purification ceremony, and what we do is we heat up these lava rocks, stones, we call them our grandmas and grandpa stone people, in this fire. And then what we do is we take them inside this dome-shaped structure, and we put them in the center of the circle there, and we will be praying in there, and we will put some water on it. And what we do is we're using all of the basic elements of life, the water, the air, the fire, and the earth. And we bring them all together and we use it to give thanks about our lives, and we pray to the Creator, God, to bless us physically, mentally, and spiritually.
What we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and go in there and purify ourselves and pray and talk to God about our lives, our wants and wishes, or just what we're thankful about.
As with many Native American activities, the sweat ceremony is divided into 4 parts, or has 4 rounds. Typically, in each round, perhaps 10 of the red-hot rocks are brought in and placed in the pit. The flap is pulled over the opening. The temperature rises.
I want to say good evening to each and every one of you from the doorway all the way around back to the doorway, and certainly welcome you to this sweat. I'm going to go ahead and put cedar down here for each and every one of you to go ahead and bless yourselves. Bless yourselves, relatives, bless yourselves.
Thank you.
Go ahead and pour some water down here for each and every one of you. You can go ahead and
A sweat might last anywhere from 1 to 2 hours. At the beginning, cedar chips are burned for a blessing. Traditional tobacco is used. Over the course of the ceremony, all participants have their opportunities to express themselves, to talk about the challenges in their lives and the things they are thankful for. There are many songs and prayers. It is a ceremony of purification, purification of the spirit, and amid the intense heat, purification of the body. It is called a sweat for a reason. One's physical reaction is well beyond that of the hottest desert summer day. The experience is a personal challenge of endurance and strength that seems consistent with many other Native American traditions.
It helps me to have balance within my life with all this nature, universal power, this air, earth, fire, and water. And practicing this way of life, it helps my well-being, mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual.
Hey, all my relations.
And a lot of times, Native American Indian people move to the city because there are no jobs on the reservation. So they come and move to the city, they live here, they bring up their families, and at one time they had the cultural teachings and they knew a lot about their tradition, as when they move into the city and they raise their kids in the city. Their kids don't get that. They don't get that living here. They lose that, you know.
Heidi Quintana of the Native American Community Health Center in Phoenix works with Arizona Indian teens and preteens in the urban setting. Such youngsters can have a difficult time with the dilemma of trying to be part of two worlds. Heidi sees real benefits from her experiences in her native culture.
I'm an urban Native American Indian. I grew up in Riverside, California. Didn't grow up around my tradition at all. I lived with my father for the first 10 years of my life. Then we moved away back to the reservation with my mom. And moving from the city to the reservation was a culture shock for me. I did not know my Indian language. I did not know my Navajo language. I never even knew half of the cousins that I met, or my uncles, or my aunts. I didn't know about any of the ceremonies or any of those things. Then moving with my mother and moving back to the reservation, having to walk to school every day, having to live without the electricity, having to haul water, not having running water, walking 3 miles to school every day in the snow, having to build fire, having to do my homework by kerosene lamp. And this was barely in the 80s, 85, 86, when everybody's supposed to have electricity. And my grandmother's, we barely got electricity back in, what, 88? Moving with my mother and having her remold us and reteach us and teach us all these things, and being around my grandmother, seeing how she does things, living with her and learning those things. It's not something you were taught, it's something you lived. That's what I'm trying to say. I wasn't taught how to pray, we lived that way. So if I had stayed in the city and grew up and didn't have all these beliefs and knew all these things, I wonder where I'd be today. I wonder who this person would be.
As we said at the outset, planet Earth is getting smaller and smaller. And it seems the very survival of mankind is dependent not just on science and technology, but upon our willingness to understand and accept each other as human beings. You know, most of the world, and probably most Americans, know very little about Native America. And so we hope that this first half of our program has helped to bridge that gap and has helped to promote a higher and more positive level of appreciation. On the road up to Nazlini, just north of Kinlichi, the summer blows in dust there, the winter sloshes slush there, and a breath can be a chore with heavy air. Amid the bigness of that nation, in the land of their creation, life is seldom easy on the road up to Nazlini. If you're past the place called Cornfields, though not to Spider Rock, a westward glance behind you seems to take you to Polacca or Bacobi, though you know that really can't be. The plateaus and the mesas jump skyward from the floor and look like you can touch them from 50 miles or more, and perhaps that misconception provides a metaphor for the gulf between the native ways and larger society's curious gaze. Amid the bigness of that nation, in the land of their creation, understanding is not easy on the road up to Nazlini. Creator, your people are here with breath to take stories toward your ear, so you will know their needs. Can you hear them breathe? Creator, they fear you don't hear them breathe, won't know their needs, so they send the smoke scent, the smoke sight, that you might see the stories rising on billows of your sacred smoke gift.
God is, we call him Ikekoi. It's a long word and it means a person that is in charge of life and breath.
Breath. The creation stories of many Native American tribes, as well as Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, as written in the book of Genesis, tells of God forming man from the elements of earth and breathing into him life. But more so, in many native beliefs, breath is a medium for carrying prayer to the Creator, particularly breath given scent and visible form when mixed with smoke, often the smoke from tobacco. In other cases, smoke alone, not mixed with breath, but made by ceremonially burning certain plants, plays a spiritual and protective role.
And the smoke, to us, the smoke goes up in the air and goes to the Creator. I call the Creator up there somewhere, and it sends our messages to him with our prayers and sing songs that we sing. So in that way we could have good prayers and prayers that will be answered by the Creator and bring forth rain or whatever, you know.
I always think that, you know, God has a line to his place, and nobody ever sees that line, but I realize it's the key is that smoke, because the smoke has no limitations. It can reach all the way into the heavens. This is why when we pray and we use sage and we use the tobacco, that is an honoring cleansing of the land. It does all these things, but also it connects us with Creator, and He listens to our message, our thought, and He sits there and He's probably saying, "Oh, my child, she remembers me," you know.
We call the smoke or the steam from the rocks genie. You know, like they call genies that come out of the lamp. We call that a genie. It comes out when we open the sweat lodge flap. It comes out like a genie, and it goes with the wind. And when the wind blows it across the canyons here, then hopefully the healing songs that we sing in the sweat lodge, the wind is blowing, the blessings would go to each home and bless everyone. And the smoke from the fire would ward off all the evil spirits.
The story is often told that the explorer, Sir Walter Raleigh, first learned of tobacco from native people, took it home to England, and the Western world started smoking. Well, to the extent that that's true, Raleigh only took home with him the physically addictive part of smoking. Actually, among many native cultures, smoking plays at least 3 roles. One is prayer, which we've covered. Another is healing, which we'll get to. But a third is talking, not just speaking, but having your say, solving community problems, in a sense, democracy. To understand that, we need to look at least one of the mythologies of how native people got tobacco in the first place.
In those days, when they met in this roundhouse, it's like governing the community, overlooking village or community. But they had only one leader at that time, which did all the talking. And so the coyote is always doing something. He was a supernatural guide in many different ways. At that time, when Coyote mentioned that, then the next time they met again, and then he brought this tobacco. And so in the old ways, they would use tobacco, and one of the things that also was real good and was a match with the tobacco was the corn husk. So when they met in this roundhouse, they would roll tobacco, and they would roll 4 of them. And when they start using this tobacco in this roundhouse and they passed this tobacco, it gave a chance for every man that was present at the time to express themselves, to say something. We call it Junyagita, where Junyagita in our language means to smoke, to come together and smoke and talk about the importance of things that were going on, even personal expressions.
Tribal elder Emmet White of the Acamil or Pima tribe, and Professor Donald Barr of Arizona State University, who speaks the O'odham language, have been friends for many years. They talk of the differences in the nature and uses of traditional versus ceremonial tobacco.
The old-timers,
the old-timers never had any problems with it because it was pure tobacco. It was what we call Bandiva. Okay, Bandiva got a tobacco of the coyote. Pure tobacco. It had no other additives to it, you know, except that, and that's what they smoked. And there was probably, you know, not as much addiction as it is now with all of the
they didn't have that much of it either, so it's not easy to get. They had to protect it.
Right, yeah, they had to protect it, and And until Bull Durham came out, you
then they
know,
got-
and Prince Albert, those
Prince
kinds
Albert,
of things, then, you know, I think...
when they
but-
grew it, did they grow it? They didn't grow it just around the house either, huh?
No,
Was
they
it out-
didn't.
out-
Huh?
like hide it somewhere?
Yeah,
or-
they would hide it
Uh-huh.
someplace along the riverbank, especially, you know, in the sandy areas and things like that. But I don't know. You know, I've known a lot of people that have smoked all their lives, and you know.
But they don't smoke that much, it seems. like.
Yeah, really.
Don't overdo it.
Yeah. So it's sacred to us because we use it to use it in that way as a get together to talk about different things, you know, and to share experiences and thoughts and wisdom and things like that, you know, and begin to form, especially within the clans, you know, that met, you know. But other than that, you know, today, you know, I use smoke in the blessings that I do, simply because I think that's the trend, more or less, and has been the trend for a few years, you know, to do, and I think that's what people are looking at today, that because we're doing that, we've been doing it a long time, which is now probably not true, you know.
If smoke from what we know as tobacco is commonly used in a sacramental way by Native American tribes, then it is important to know that other kinds of smoke and other substances are sometimes used sacramentally as well. For example, the Navajos certainly use smoke, but according to Dr. Anthony Lee, it is not from tobacco, but from various plants that grow naturally on their huge reservation. These sacred species are treated reverently.
What we do is we go to certain geographic, locations, and again we make offerings, and we tell the plant exactly why we're taking the plant and in what way the plant is going to be used, and of course it's for the purposes of healing, to heal a person. There are different types of tobacco, plants. One is used in the blessing way to restore harmony and balance, and then the other species, plant species, it's used to cure, to correct certain deficiencies, and the minute that you inhale and then exhale, then that's when the communion starts, with the sacred communion with Mother Earth and Father Sky. And then that's how you acknowledge your presence, your physical presence with the spiritual entities in all four directions of the universe. Each plant has a purpose, and if we try to use, let's say, Virginia Slims to for the purposes of cleansing, purging, maybe livestock, it's not going to work. There's going to be no connection.
Similarly, Edgar Perry tells of certain Apache traditions.
And then the Apache go up to Mount Baldy, and there's a herb almost smell like celery. It really smells strong, and the leaf is like a carrot leaf, and it's tall, and the bottom has a roots. It's brown roots, and then when you dig about 5 or 6 inches down, and you get the roots, and it sure smells strong. And when you take the cover off it, it's like little grayish white and grayish yellow, and it smells. They call it hachigi. Hachigi is for blessing, for prayer, for headache, for an herb that lives up in the mountain. And the Apache would grind that and get it dry, grind it, and then they would make a cigarette out of that. I mean, smoke it. And the Apache always smoke and pray, usually the medicine man. And in the morning, in the evening, and then before he prays or sing, that he will do that, or before he dances a crown dance. And So I say that the medicine man smoked, but we're not supposed to smoke, but only the medicine man because he prays for people a lot.
Of course, the best known and perhaps most controversial sacrament is the use by the Native American Church of peyote. The ceremony at which peyote is used is not known as a church service, but a meeting, called often, though not on a regular schedule, and usually for an identifiable purpose, to give encouragement, to pray for the benefit of an honored participant, or to celebrate a special occasion, to give thanks. The meeting has its own liturgy or rituals, which are for the most part private, so we will offer only a general view. Participants sit on the ground, usually on pillows around the outer perimeter of a teepee. A small fire is in the center, carefully maintained by a knowledgeable person. And near the fire is formed a low earth ridge, which effectively serves as an altar. When we asked if we could watch a meeting, we were told no, but you could fully participate in one, which we agreed to. Meetings last from dusk until after dawn. In our case, in early summer, that totaled 11.5 hours. Meetings are not allowed to be photographed, but we were allowed to shoot videotape of the setting beforehand, and we were told it would be just fine to use illustrations of the meeting in this program. Men and women participate together in meetings. This is in contrast with some Native American ceremonies which are separated by gender. Meetings usually involve members of multiple tribes, and often a sprinkling of non-Indians. There are protocols regarding how one enters and exits the teepee, and always facing the fire. As with any church, a primary purpose of a gathering is prayer. Tobacco and corn husk paper is passed around, rolled, and smoked. Blessings are offered. Throughout the night, individuals have the opportunity to offer songs, typically in their native language, and to speak to the gathering. The peyote sacrament is offered only at specific points in the process. It can take various forms. In our experience, it was ground about to the consistency of ground coffee. Each person took the amount right for them, the maximum appearing to be about equal to a level teaspoon, then washed it down with drinks of peyote tea. In some senses, it's not so different from taking communion wine in the Catholic Mass, or the Kiddush blessing in a synagogue. But more than a sip of wine, it does have a perception-altering element to it.
The significance of peyote in the Native American church ceremony is that you become one with God. In other churches, you talk to God, but with the peyote, it helps you, it enlightens you, it helps you to meditate, it helps you to focus on concerns that you may have, and to me, it provides solutions on how to deal with those concerns. But it is symbolically, it's the same as the sacramental wine or the host in the other churches.
In the 1960s, Professor Donald Barr began 40 years of study of O'odham spirituality, including practices relating to certain sicknesses believed by the O'odham people to be exclusive to them. In the process, he developed a friendship with a Tohono O'odham medicine man named Juan Gregorio, who in his native language explained on audio tape the causes, diagnosis, and cures for what are called staying sicknesses. From these conversations, Barr, Gregorio, and others authored a book titled Pima Shamanism and Staying Sicknesses. The O'odham way is many and varied in its parts, in what God made us here on the earth's surface, and in whatever He gave to us. And we use that O'odham way so that our society will stay proper. That is the reason the way exists, to assure propriety which is an assistance to the people's life. And yet the way is dangerous too, if one should fail to use it properly. Propriety has been given to everything. There are commandments about how things should be taken care of. Well, it may happen to an O'odham if he doesn't believe the commandments, or if he forgets them and acts improperly, then something may be there to confront him. That is where he brings on his own sickness. Juan Gregorio is saying the Creator has a list of commandments, not unlike the 10 Commandments, but with some differences. First, there are far more than 10. Second, they focus on the natural world, especially the protection of certain animals. And third, there are real consequences. In the Old Testament, the Torah, if you break enough commandments, you might go to hell. In Juan Gregorio's paradigm, if you break a rule, such as to kill a protected animal in a cruel way, the power or the strength of that species, that dangerous object, may punish you by entering your body, making you sick. Dangerous objects range from rabbits to houseflies, from deer to jimson weed. About 50 are noted. And what's trickier is that it may not make you sick until years later, when you don't even remember what you did.
And so the person usually doesn't know what it is that's making him sick, what kind of dangerous object. For this, he has to go to a medicine man who may be able to find out in a hurry, in a kind of like a quick checkup event that's called kulanyamat. Or it may take all night in a big long ceremony which is called doajida. During the ceremony, the medicine man sings and studies things, and then at the end he or she sucks out some of the dangerous object. That sucking is partly to relieve the sickness, but it's also to learn what is the identity of the sickness, so that you can say, well, you have jackrabbit and you have butterfly. After the medicine man finds out what's the matter, then the sick person has got to find someone who knows how to do a cure, a singing cure, and also a blowing cure for that kind of dangerous object. That's not the same person as the medicine man, and it's done at a separate occasion. This too could take all night, although sometimes it just takes a few hours for a cure, which is called in O'odham wusota, which means the blowing. So this whole way of taking care of sickness is really orchestrated around the breath. There is the strong form of breathing out, that's blowing. And there's the strong form of breathing in, that's sucking. Only the medicine man sucks, and that's in the event called the duajida or the kulanyamata. Both medicine man and curer blow. The blowing is sometimes done just with the breath alone, and sometimes it's breath accompanied by tobacco smoke. But it seems like it's the breath and not the smoke that really makes the difference. Although it's understood that what smoke does is add visibility and also a scent to the breath. And the idea is that wherever the smoke is, so is the breath there too. And for these people, breath is really the same thing as soul.
The San Carlos Apache Reservation, north and east of Globe, Arizona, is a good place to draw the important distinction between the occasional ceremonial use of traditional tobacco and the habitual use of commercial tobacco. Dr. Vicki Stevens is a San Carlos Apache and a medical doctor.
And then here's the two screws that are down below there.
Her specialization is as an orthopedic surgeon in Globe, but each week she takes her practice to San Carlos, where she grew up.
Together where we want the bone to grow. Nicotine has got the ability to make the arteries inside of your body get narrower and skinnier. So when we smoke, the arteries get tiny, they constrict down a little bit, and because they do that, then they can't get enough oxygen into the area where the injury is. And when you don't get oxygen there, you don't get all the healing and the nutrition that needs to go into the bone, into the muscle, into the skin to help your injury heal. Smoking also affects the lungs, but in a direct way there, because there's a lot of tar, there's a lot of other black things, if you will, that are in smoke that get stuck in our lungs when we smoke. And so when we do smoke, that tar and the black coal-looking things actually wedges inside of the lung tissue, and the lung tissue has to live with that in there. So sometimes the lung tissue reacts against that, and as it does so, we think that it sets up enough of a response in some people that they develop cancer.
Her real problem is her knee, real big time.
I think you can really say, truthfully, that the lifestyles of Native peoples have not become as healthy as they were. Instead, we're seeing behaviors start to evolve, including smoking and the use of drugs that we never saw even 25 years ago. So definitely there's a change in the behavior of young Indian people, and this is a behavioral change that's happening all across the country. It's not just in Indian country that this is occurring.
You know, for us, you know, the elements spoke to us a long time ago. All these things and why they had meaning is lost, is gone. When you don't have those beliefs and what you believed in at one time, then you turn to depression. Depression turns to alcohol, turns to drugs, turns to you're not happy within yourself, who you are and what you are. And a lot of Native American Indian people at this time and age are depressed.
Among Heidi Quintana's responsibilities with the Native American Community Health Center in Phoenix is to coordinate youth activities with the Red Road program. Among her efforts is to educate Native youngsters on the consequences of smoking commercial tobacco, as compared to the occasional ceremonial use of traditional tobacco.
And it's amazing that after I do my presentations on both, I'm always thinking they're going to be confused. You know, hey, we just got through talking about against commercial tobacco, against commercial tobacco. Now that we're telling them, a little bit about traditional tobacco, but they really do understand. They understand the difference, and that's what's important.
The tobacco that was given to us in the beginning was used ceremonially. It was never used on a daily basis. And that's the problem today, is that the tobacco is being abused.
We didn't have cigarettes in the past. We didn't inhale on a constant basis this smoke into our bodies. And certainly if we're going to change behaviors in a way that are evolving into illness, we need to look at that and say, wait a minute, let's go back to some of our older behaviors. Let's see about trying to act more traditional in that way. And get away from some of the bad influences that are changing the younger ones today.
And so smoking doesn't help if we smoke and put a lot of smoke in our lung. And we're just like the animals and the birds. The birds are beautiful. And I always say to the kids, it's bad for your lung. And you get your lung all black and holy, and then people don't last very long because they smoke a lot. And so what I'm saying is that God created us just like the birds, and that we shouldn't smoke at all, and just be healthy and like the birds.
Oh! Hit my toe.
Go around early in the morning. Let your lung be filled with Mountain Dew or very fresh air, the morning air, and you will live a long time.
And so there's a lot of things that we use here from the earth, and from the trees that help us in our healing is given to us by our Josh, what we call today, And of course, Suhu, her elder brother, before he left, said, I will give you these things. I will give you these things and I will leave them with you. If you don't take care of them, if you don't use them, then I will take it back. One is it's our foods, you know, is getting scarce from the land. Our language is getting scarce. Our religion is, you know, is getting scarce. And so, you know, it goes on, you know, that if we don't use them, he's taking them back.
Some tribal songs are strictly social. Some tell stories of history and mythologies. Others are sacred and might only be sung during certain seasons of the year or at certain times of day. Sacred songs usually would not be performed at a public powwow. Many old tribal songs have been lost altogether. In other cases, the song itself may be known and sung, but the exact meaning or significance is lost. The words or chants in a tribal song are not necessarily like Christian hymns, where the lyric literally expresses the thought or tells the story.
You know, a lot of it has been lost. Our teacher, Lorraine, who is teaching us now, she's trying to bring it back to us, but she doesn't really remember it all. So what she does is she'll pick them up here and there. It's hard for her because a lot of the stuff was not recorded, and it's passed on by word of mouth. And so, you know, I think each one of us may have a little piece here and there that we know. You know, one of these days maybe we'll get it all together. You know.
Dancing is a practice that has probably been part of every society throughout time. These old films of Arizona Indian dancers from the 1950s demonstrate the consistency of the art form. As with songs, dances can be social, tell a story, or be a form of prayer. And as with songs, highly sacred dances would typically not be performed in public. At Supai village, the dance group The Guardians offered to perform the ram dance for our cameras.
The ram is sacred because it is one of our people that he did turn into, one of my people turned into a ram, and he ran off with a herd of rams. So one of those rams in the group is our brother. So we represent him in our dance, you know, in our dance. So.
You're just not sure which one it is?
No, we're
so
not.
You protect all of them?
Yeah, just all of them. Yeah, this dance is to protect them and to bring forth our happiness. Happiness.
When they're dancing like birds, you know, the way a bird prances around or the way a bird walks around, or in flight. So like the other two, the two way to end, they go with the beat of the music, and the music's a little bit faster and a little bit quicker, so they're dancing, you know, much quicker, has a quicker step to it. While these other end, they're dancing a little bit slower, like a bird dancing, kind of a little bit slow, not really knowing if they should pick it up or not, you know. But also in their journey, they're talking about life. You know, we have 4 parts to our life. And so the song is kind of what would I say, a guiding, it's a journey. The song is about a journey. So to us, we're on a journey all the time. Really, this is not really our home. Our home is in our sacred grounds.
When it comes to tribal dance, there is no shortage of interest on the part of Native American youngsters.
In a circle, then you go, you turn around, and then you go like this, like this, like this, like this. Okay.
Very good.
And then you go up like that. Then when you get to the top, you go like this, and then you go like this for a while, and then they go like that with the sticks, and then we turn around, then we go back out.
Through the ages, Native American tribes developed and participated in their own sports and games. Aside from recreation and sometimes gambling, these activities often included elements to build and test strength and endurance, particularly in young people, as seen here among the Cocopah.
Why we play this game is to show endurance, you know, to give them a chance to endure the elements, which is whatever it may be, hot, cold, kneeling on the ground, or mentally, you know, trying to guess where the white bone is, but to build up their, I guess the word would be their stamina, to make them strong.
In the early years of the 21st century, American Indians face many challenges, not the least of which is the preservation of tribal cultures and heritage. Song, dance, legend and mythology, games, ceremonial practices, and spiritual beliefs. The cultural asset most at risk, and the focus of perhaps the greatest effort, is language.
Let's sing the patriotic song, America the Beautiful. And this was translated by some guy, I don't know, his name is Edgar, I guess. Okay. Yod and John, go, darkness, go,
Historically, the number of Native American tribes was in the range of 500. Several tribes may fall into a single language group. For example, Navajos and Apaches were both originally Athabascan speakers. But over the centuries, dialects evolved into virtual separate languages. But that isn't the problem. Rather, the effects of modern society and the movement of young people to the cities creates new generations that grow up not knowing their native tribal languages at all.
The kids are beginning to lose their language. And why? Because there's so many outside world is coming in. The magazine, the videos, the television, the radio, the movies. I believe that the Apache language is the main core and to our being and to who we are. And when we lose our language, then we'll just become like a white man, regular white man.
For my family, I've tried to teach my kids Pima. I talk to them in Pima at home, and on Tuesday nights it's kind of like family night, and you know, we try to use as much Pima. They'll talk to me and make remarks and this thing and understand what I'm saying, but when they step out of the house, there's nobody their age or, you know, that they can associate with. Not like what I did when I was growing up. All people my age spoke Pima, and there we could, you know, converse and carry on conversations. And today it's very hard for somebody to go and learn something and try to come back and use it because nobody else will talk to them, you know.
Dr. John Martin, a University of Chicago trained anthropologist at Arizona State University, has been involved in working with the Havasupai tribe for some 38 years.
Well, almost all the tribes are losing their language, and this is the only tribe where it's still at least 90% of the people here are completely bilingual, including the children, which is really rare for Indian tribes this day and age.
Are you sisters?
No.
No?
And as you saw, these kids, they'll just switch back and forth from English to Havasupai in a complete facility. It just gives a lie to the argument that a kid can't keep his own language and also learn English when these kids do it. There are people here who write poetry in Havasupai. There was a linguist here who taught them how to write haikus in their language.
Really?
Yeah, which is, I think, ironic because haiku is their word for a white man.
Native American history, legends, wisdom, and spirituality have, for the most part, been passed from generation to generation orally, word of mouth. It is a very important part of cultural preservation. In our travels, Arizona Indians shared with us many of these traditions. Flying over the area around Supai village in the Grand Canyon, we saw and photographed a blue heron.
That is a powerful symbol of the people. The heron only comes you are very blessed to see it because it only comes through this area very seldom, but that is a powerful bird for us because it has a story behind itself.
Is that a story you're allowed to tell me?
No,
okay.
Just to let you know that there is a story behind that, but it's a very powerful bird and a real blessing for someone to see it.
I live, you know, out there with my grandmother. I used to live with her in the Uqualla. And my mother too, and they taught us how to cook, and we know how to cook and which animals to eat and which birds to eat and which birds not to eat. And we're not supposed to touch a snake, lizard, frog, and water dog. Those are taboo to us. And owl is really taboo because it's death. It's like the owl sitting on the Twin Tower, and then destruction will come. That's how it was in the old days when they built a Uqualla. The owl would sit on the Uqualla. That means one of the members is going to die.
Those two pillars that we have in our village here are the elder warrior and the young warrior. They're the first two warriors that came upon this valley. They're the first two warriors that sort of signify foolishness and wisdom. Elder being much more wiser and the young one being much more foolish, which kind of brings to mind that is the way the human beings are. When we're young, we're prone to be much more aggressive, much more alert, much more exploring. And then the elder one has gone through those types of things and has made mistakes and learned from those mistakes, making them much more wiser, much more humble, and much more respectful and honoring those around them, whereas the young ones, like a little puppy, they run here and there and pretty soon they're in trouble, and they learn from those mistakes. And those two pillars kind of remind us of that type of growth in our spiritual as well as our physical and cultural life.
The elements of Arizona Indian culture, the focus of preservation efforts, language, song, dance, legend, mythology, games of strength and endurance, are not merely activities. They are components of the broader world of Native American spirituality that emphasizes the importance, the necessity of respecting and living in balance with the spiritual and natural worlds. They are the essence of being Native American. As Apache elder Edgar Perry observed earlier, if these are lost, we'll just become like the white man, the regular white man.
You have to move to the city to get a decent job, to go back to school, to go to college, to get that education to take home. And when you're living in the city, that makes it harder for Native American Indian people to have, you know, their ceremonies in the city. There is no place for that. So basically you have to go home.
We believe that sometimes you have to go back to the past, bring a little bit of the past to the future to make you strong. That's the way Cocopah, you know, believes, and I think there's a lot of other tribes believe the same way.
Today, Navajo culture, Navajo language, Navajo values are taught to the young scholars here at the Net College, and we are the only college in the United States, throughout the United States, that has such a curriculum, and that's what makes us unique.
Respect is the whole gamut of our belief system here in terms of our Himiduk. Himiduk meaning our way of life, and it starts and begins and ends with respect. That we do care about our parents, we do care about our brothers, we do care about the land, we do care about the animals. We as Native Americans are thought of as the caretakers of the earth, and that's what we've been doing for generations, is taking care of Mother Earth.
They go through an area where they're just lost, the children just become lost, and then they find themselves going back into what they remember was themselves as Havasupai, or I am this person. Remember that you have to accept yourself the way you are and be proud.
And as we go through life, we begin to struggle and sometimes go contrary to our traditional beliefs and traditional ways because of the modern influence. And as we go through that, maybe even hardship in life, maybe even tragedies in life. So through that, when we go through life, we begin to find something in life that we have to renew our spirit, and one of them is our traditional ceremonies.
I learned these songs and this dance when I was very young age. My grandfather and my grandmother told me these stories.
Fortunately, we still have our elders to rely upon for that knowledge. And unfortunately, though, most of the knowledge that they have has never been written. So once they leave, it leaves with them. But there are some elders who have been very helpful, and they have been willing to have themselves videotaped or talk about certain legends and stories to pass on to other, future generations.
If there's an evil spirit in the village, then I make burnt offerings. I burn my sage, I go from room to room, and then I call my children, and they all get in a circle, and we pray together. We hold our hands and we all pray together, and I try to explain to them that there's evil spirits in the village and that we need to bring our love much closer, because the love of the family is much more powerful than the evil spirits that are out here. When those spirit forces see the love that you have and that they can't break that home, that family unit, then they give up.